It's still early with Dante Fabbro, but the returns are looking promising. So let's talk about that, and let's talk about what this means for the fate of the rest of the defensemen on the Blue Jackets roster. That's today's Locked on Blue Jackets topic.
You're Locked on Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked on Blue Jackets, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, here to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly about your favorite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before we get things started, I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day every single day. Locked on Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms and over on YouTube. I also have to know that this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you're going to get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. I thought we would talk about the defenseman today. I feel like a lot of conversation recently, either on this show and kind of in general, has been about the forwards and where has the offense gone, and why are some guys scoring and some guys not. But I wanted to kind of take a look at what the defense looks like thus far in the season, because I personally think that the defense is the most improved part of the Blue Jackets game. Just kind of in general. I'm just pulling up some stats that I need, but so I want to talk a little bit about Dante Fabbro. I want to talk about we're seeing promising early returns from him. I want to talk about what this means for the right defense depth chart. I want to talk a little bit about David Jiricek, because of course I do. I've got some interesting stats that I've pulled on David Jiricek, which surprised me actually. And just kind of the defense as a whole, because like I said, I think the defense has been extremely good. Well improved from last season, quite honestly. And I talked about how basically everything needed to be better. But for me, it was the defense that needed to improve the most. So let's start off with just kind of defense as a whole. The Blue Jackets are allowing fewer shots on goal, basically to a man. I had the stats pulled up and then I lost them, so take a drink if you are part of that particular Locked on Blue Jackets drinking game. So this season, so far, the Blue Jackets are allowing 28.7 shots on goal per game, which is 6 shots fewer per game than last season. Last season, they were allowing, let me just double check that. 8 shots, even better. The Blue Jackets last season allowed 34.4 shots per game. This season, it's, 27.4. So, okay, so seven shots exactly more than they were last season. They're also improving in how many pucks they're putting on net, but that's the most drastic change for me anyway. Is that shots against per game. They're allowing fewer chances, basically across the board, which is that is the first start. In terms of like some more meaty stats, shall we say? In terms of goals against above expected, they allowed only 5 more goals against above expected. So they allowed more than 5 goals above what they were expected to score, if that makes sense. They allowed 5 goals more than they were expected to allow, which is kind of a goaltending issue as before anything else. But when you look at this season, they are actually allowing 2.51 goals fewer above expected. Which what that means is they're actually allowing 2 goals fewer than expected. So last season, they allowed 5 goals more than they were expected to. So far this season, they've allowed 2.5 goals fewer than they were expected. So again, that's kind of a goaltending thing, but I think it's worth talking about because that was the biggest, and that's kind of what defense is all about, isn't it? It's like you keep the puck away from your goalie, keep the puck away from the net. You give the goalie less chances to save. And hopefully you profit. So just kind of in general, the defense is doing much, much better than last season. We're seeing something else that I think is interesting is we're seeing more consistency from the teams, which, if you will remember, is something I talked about a lot this summer. Was they need to be more consistent with their ice time. So far, the defense pairings, the leader in minutes is Werenski and Provorov, who played 211 minutes together so far this season. Last season, and if you remember, the Blue Jackets are less than a quarter of the way through the season, so they're on pace. And I know that the pairings have shifted around a little bit, but they're basically on pace for about 840 minutes together. Last season, the most consistent pair was Jake Bean and Eric Gabranson, who played together for 575 minutes. And that was your third pair as well, by the way. Your third pair defenseman should not be playing the most ice time. Like the Werenski's most common defense partner was Severson, who he played 456 minutes with. He played 333 minutes with Adam Boquist. He played 230 minutes with Eric Gabranson. 87 with Provorov, 81 with Blankenberg, and 67 minutes with Bean. So I didn't count that up, but I believe that is 5 different defense partners that Werenski had last season. This season, he's played almost exclusively with Provorov, played a game with Fabbro, has played a little bit with Severson over the past couple of games. He played 51 minutes with Fabbro, 58 minutes with Severson, 211, like I said, with Provorov. So, like, that helps a lot. I think consistency has been huge for this team in terms of not consistency in play necessarily, but consistency in people that your players are playing with, consistency in line mates, consistency in defense partners. And that was, for me, a big issue of last season was, of course, they were bad. Of course, they looked like they didn't know who they were playing with, because chances are they didn't know who they were playing with. It felt like Pascal Vincent just threw a bunch of spaghetti at the wall every other game. Whereas, I haven't agreed with all of Everson's decisions, but for the most part, he has been playing. People with the same people for the most part. Like, if things don't work, he's changing them up. Like he changed up the forward lines quite a lot in the game against Boston yesterday, or on Monday night, excuse me. But beyond, like, previous to that, he hadn't really, like, he tweaked stuff, but he hadn't really done like a wholesale, let's go back to the drawing board, let's change up every single line, every single defense pairing. So that, I think, is helping as well. Now, where does Dante Fabbro come into this? Well, Dante Fabbro has come in and has taken advantage of the fact that for some reason, which, again, we talk about, I don't understand and agree with every decision that Dean Everson makes, Ivan Provorov has been moved back to the left side. I don't know if that's because of the issues with the third pair underperforming. So the Blue Jackets were a little top-heavy on defense. Like, they had, obviously, Werenski and Provorov on the top pairing, and then they had Christensen, Severson on the second pairing, and then the third pairing was a rotation of, since the Gabranson injury, anyway, it was a rotation of Johnson, Harris, Jiricek, all three of whom kind of were seen as underperforming. And we're going to talk about Jiricek specifically in a minute here, because I looked at his stats and I was surprised by what I saw. But Dante Fabbro comes in because the Blue Jackets wanted to move Provorov back to the left side, I think maybe to platform him for a trade, potentially. And also, I think, potentially because that third pairing has struggled so much that they were like, right, well, if we move Provorov back to the left, we can bump Christensen, who has been very, very steady, down to the third pairing. And then on your right side, you've still got Severson, you've still got Johnson, you've got Jiricek, Harris can play on that side. And now you've got Dante Fabbro as well. So, like, Adding Dante Fabbro in it's given him an opportunity to take a top 4 spot, which he has done immediately, and I think has done quite well with that. It's allowed Provorov to move back to the left side, which again, I don't necessarily agree with because I really liked the Werenski-Provorov pairing up on that top line. That being said, I really like Provorov and Fabbro as a pairing against Boston. Like, if that stays together, I wouldn't be mad about it. I don't love Werenski-Severson as an option, and I don't think that they've performed as well as Werenski-Provorov or Werenski-Fabbro have, but it gives some flexibility in the lineup, and I've liked Fabbro a lot. I think Fabbro has performed very well. He's only played 4 games for the Blue Jackets. He's got just under 70 minutes of 5-on-5 ice time, and he's been on the ice for 74 shot attempts for 68 against, which is good for 4th on the team. The only players better than him in terms of defensemen anyway, Werenski, Severson, Provorov. But what's interesting about all of those guys is, yes, they shoot a lot, but also they give up quite a lot as well. So, like, Werenski's been on the ice for 403 shot attempts for Fabbro, 74. Werenski has given up 334 shot attempts against, Fabbro only 68. So, like, the ratio is about the same, but Werenski has just been doing it in so much more volume. And then if you look at, like, expected goal percentage, Fabbro is, again, he's up over 50%. He's shockingly just a shade below Jack Johnson. Jack Johnson's expected goals 4% is so much higher than I thought it was going to be. But again, we'll talk about that in a minute here. But like, just in terms of Fabbro, I think he's come in, he's taken his chances, he's taken his advantage. In 4 games this season, he's already played more 5-on-5 time than the David Jiricek, which feels like a problem. But no one on this team, with the exception of Eric Branson, who played about half an hour before getting injured, David Jiricek is allowing fewer expected goals against than any other defenseman. Like, he's been shockingly good defensively. He was quite bad against Boston, but, you know, we talked about that. David Jiricek has not created a lot of offense, but he hasn't given up much of anything, really, which I think is surprising to me. And again, we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail later on. But Fabbro, I think, for a guy that has come in and, you know, needed a fresh start, needed a new situation, has really kind of taken advantage of that opening up on the right side. And I think he's doing quite well. So in a minute, we'll talk about what this means for that right depth defense chart. You know, whether Fabbro sticks it out, what happens, you know, who should be playing night in, night out, basically. So we'll talk about that in just a second here on Locked On Blue Jackets. First, I'm going to tell you about Prize Picks. What is Prize Picks? Well, it is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. All you got to do is pick more or less than at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash, so you can run your game all season long on Prize Picks. It's the only real money daily fantasy platform with an insurance policy if you're injured or if your players are injured, so your lineups stay in place even if someone does get hurt. If your player leaves in the first period and doesn't return, Prize Picks keeps your lineup live. And they've invented the flex play, which means that you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. And they now offer Venmo for quick and easy deposits and withdrawals into your account this sports season. Sign up today. When you play for your first $5 lineup, you're going to get $50 instantly. You don't even need to win that lineup. All you got to do is play it, and you're going to get $50 guaranteed, which is pretty good, if you ask me. So download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. Speaking of games, let's talk about game time, because I love to go to last-minute hockey games. I love to finish work, and I'm like, oh, let's see what's happening. The Sharks are at home. Let's go to a Sharks game. My wife comes home from work. We head out. It's great. Game Time is the only site that I use for last-minute tickets, and it's not just sports as well. They've got theater. They've got comedy. They've got music. Anything you need, like if you need a ticket to get in the door, Game Time probably has it for you. And they've got a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams, bands, whatever, play live even easier. It filters out the fluff to only show you incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And If you find tickets in your section and row for less on somewhere else, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference, and they've got the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. We're talking about defensemen today and what the addition of Dante Fabbro means for the rest of the team. Because, it was a really... I love this waiver pickup, honestly. It was a real low-risk, high-reward potential pickup. He was either on the first pairing in Nashville or he was a healthy scratch and nothing in between. He's making, I think, $2.5 million this year, is a UFA after that. So if it doesn't work, you don't have to do anything with that contract. Blue Jackets have about $1 bajillion in cap space, so it's not like they needed to do any kind of math to make it work. If he works out, great. Win. If he doesn't work out, flip him at the deadline, let him walk at the end of the season. It doesn't matter. You got him for nothing, so it doesn't matter if you end up losing him for nothing. But if you can get like a 4th round pick for him at the deadline, hey, job's good. But so far, I think he's made a good case to stick around. He's been given ample opportunity to play on that top 4. He played really well with Werenski. He's played extremely well with Provorov. I know it's only one game. I imagine we'll probably see that pairing together on Thursday against Tampa Bay. But he's doing everything he can to make a go of it here, which is you love to see it. It's always fun because I feel like the Blue Jackets have been the victim of player goes somewhere else and immediately is good. Or immediately, like William Karlsson, I think, is the biggest example of this. If he went to Vegas and immediately had like a 40-goal season or something insane like that. Dante Fabbro is not going to have a 40-goal season, but it feels really nice to be on the other end of that. Oh, we've picked up a player for nothing. Let's see what he's like. And it turns out actually he's pretty good, So I'm enjoying that. I think he's doing a really great job. What does this mean for everyone else? Well, a couple of things. As I already talked about in the first segment, that's shifted Provorov back to the left, which I didn't love initially because I really liked Werenski and Provorov together as a pairing. They are, in fact, the best pairing for the Blue Jackets so far this season. When you're looking at expected goal, where is it? Expected goals for... I've lost the stat that I was on. But basically, they create a lot of offense. And though they give up a lot of shots, they're not giving up a lot of goals, which is kind of key. They have been outscored, or not outscored. Werenski Provorov has been on the ice for 11 goals for and 7 against. Christensen Severson, the other pairing in the top 4, has also been very good. They've been on the ice for 13 goals for and 10 against. So the top 4 was scoring a lot of goals, but also giving up a fair amount. So that top 4 was on the ice for 24 goals for and 17 against, which is, pretty good, honestly. Werenski Fabbro have come in. They were on the ice for 3 goals for, 2 against. And then if I just adjust the slider on Money Puck real quick, Provorov and Fabbro, I believe, only played like 17 minutes together. So, again, small sample size, but they were on the ice for 2 goals for and 0 against. So, Fabbro is doing pretty good, I think. He's what's that? 4 games he's played. He's been on the ice for 2 goals against at even strength, which is, even strength is even strength. Oh, this might even be all situations as opposed to even strength only. But my point is, Fabbro has been a really good addition. This has moved Provorov back to the left side. It's pushed Christensen down into that third pairing, and it has meant that Harris and Jiricek and Johnson now, instead of rotating for 2 spots, are all rotating for 1 spot. I don't know that Jack Johnson has played since the addition of of Dante Fabbro, which is probably for the best. It seems like they've been rotating Harris and Jiricek on that third pairing, which again I like. Jiricek was not great against Boston, but he's again we'll talk about him in a minute because I really do want to talk about his underlying stats. But it does mean there is even more of a logjam to defense than there was before. The Blue Jackets are currently rolling with 8 defensemen on the roster. I do genuinely think that when they activate Ken Johnson from IR, which might happen today, might happen tomorrow, I think I would put money on him playing on Thursday. If he's not playing Thursday, he's almost definitely playing on Saturday, which is the next game. So again, we'll talk about what that means. But my guess is they activate Ken Johnson from IR. They need to make a corresponding roster move because they're sitting at 23 men on the roster right now. You've got to send Jiricek to the AHL. You have to. So it means that you will be rolling 7 defensemen. I personally would put Christensen and Harris on that bottom pairing. I know that they don't love having defensemen play their offside. They're both left defensemen. But if your choice is Harris and Johnson, and even like Harris has been struggling, even if you're looking at Harris versus Johnson, like that to me feels like an easy choice to make. Harris hasn't done great in his time in Columbus so far. I think he's really struggled with the system specifically, which is weird because he was really good in Montreal. I liked him a lot, and there was a lot of hype about him coming here, and he hasn't really delivered on that, which is kind of a shame. So I wonder if maybe they roll Christensen and Johnson on that third pairing. But basically what it means is as long as Fabbro is playing like he is, the right defense depth chart has just got a little bit deeper, which frankly gives them a little bit more time to develop players, I think. And, it all comes back to Jiricek in the end. And I did mean to talk more about Jiricek than Fabbro on this episode, but I don't know if that's going to happen. I didn't mean to talk about I didn't mean to talk more about Fabbro than Jiricek on this episode, but we'll see what happens there. Fabbro gives them more time with Jiricek, I think. I know that Jiricek thinks he's ready, and I know that Jiricek's agent thinks that he's ready. The Blue Jackets don't think that he's ready. Everyone continues to foam at the mouth about potentially getting Jiricek in a trade. I really genuinely don't see that happening. Like, I could be wrong. I've been wrong before, many times, in fact. But it doesn't make sense for the player or the organization to do that because he's not going to crack the lineup in any other team. So he's going to end up going to the AHL no matter where he is. I think potentially, that rift between player and organization might eventually get too big to cross. But as I don't think it's there right now. This player is 20 years old. It's fine. And I think bringing Fabbro in, if Fabbro is successful, then it gives the Blue Jackets more flexibility. It means that they don't feel the need to play Jack Johnson in every single game. It will probably free up Damon Severson as well. He will not have to play as many minutes. And again, Damon Severson is one of those guys where the fewer minutes he plays, the better he is. So that's always a good thing. But I want to finish up here by talking a little bit more about David Jiricek because I looked at the Blue Jackets kind of defensive numbers and in terms of who's creating the most offense, who's creating the most defense. Expecting Jiricek to kind of be at the bottom of most of these stats. However, he is not. And I want to talk about that in just a second here on Locked On Blue Jackets. First, I've got to tell you about FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. You can bet on whatever you want. Find the heaviest favorite you can. Put $5 on it. If it comes through, you get $150 that you can put on whatever you want. And the FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets all in one place. So if you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats. You can do live play-by-play and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You don't have to have 17 different ESPN tabs open. You can do it all on FanDuel. Join FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if that first $5 bet comes through. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Welcome back to Locked on Blue Jackets. Let's talk about David Jiricek because, again, I was extremely surprised by the numbers that I saw with him. So I'm just pulling up the stats here. So the Blue Jackets have played 9 defensemen this season. One of those defensemen is Eric Branson, who was in 3 games and played 36 minutes before getting injured. So we'll cross him off. Defensemen that have played over 50 minutes, of which there are 8 of them. And that is, I feel like that's being extremely generous with the cutoff here because Jiricek has played 66 minutes, Dante Fabbro has played 69 minutes, and then the next place is Jordan Harris, who's played 130. So, like, ideally, like, again, this is a very small sample size, but even with that small sample size, I was shocked by it. David Jiricek is currently sitting second in expected goals for percentage. He's not creating a ton. He's only creating 2.99 expected goals for, but he's only allowing 2.56 goals for, which is a 53.9%. The only player that's got a better expected goals for percentage than him on this team is David Severson, which is unexpected and also kind of fun. Like, if I'm being honest, in terms of like players in like the league, let's say, I'm trying to pull up the expected goals for defensemen. Where is it? I had it and then lost it. But my the point here is oh, it's gone. David Jiricek is playing far better than I expected, honestly. And again, he's not creating a ton of not creating a ton of offense, but he's also not giving up as much offense as I expected. Like, which again is surprising to me. In terms of expected, I can't find the stat that I want, which is really annoying me. But like he's doing much better than I expected. And again, he was very poor in the game against Boston. He was like, there's no way around that. But that game aside, he's actually been quite good. He just hasn't been getting a lot of opportunities for that. In terms of like league wide, he's sitting at 66th overall in the league, which doesn't sound like a lot, but if you consider that that's probably on average, like there's 32 teams, so 64 defensemen playing on the top pairing. David Jiricek is creating expected goals for at about the same rate as your average third pairing defenseman. Again, small sample size, but doing much better than expected. Anyway, all of this means is I don't think the team is going to give up on him yet, and I've seen a lot of people talk about, oh well, they should trade him, they should get rid of him, he's not like. He hasn't hit his potential. He was 6th overall and he's a bust. And I'm like, the kid's 20 years old. Can we stop? Can we not? But there's a reason that 31 teams or the fans of the other 31 teams are like, we should definitely trade for this guy. And that maybe means that you should keep hold of this player. If every other team wants him, then maybe you should also want him, you know? They have him under team control. He's got 2 more years of his ELC left. He is still waivers eligible. Like, I know that his agent is famous for being kind of a pain in the butt for teams to deal with. I have no issue with that. I respect an agent that like wants the best for his players, because the team just wants to take advantage of the players, basically. You know, we don't have time to get into the agent versus team dynamic here, but like, I just don't think there's a situation where this trade makes sense, because like at the end of the day, what are you going to get in return for David Jiricek that is going to make it worth it? You know, like, ideally, you're going to want a first-round pick of a similar caliber. You know, so you're going to want a first-round pick in that kind of 5 to 10 range, guaranteed, basically. Or you're going to want a similar prospect that is maybe struggling in his own club and, again, could use a switch. And, like, again, I spent some time thinking about this because I talked about this in yesterday's episode and then was like, who is out there and is struggling and also still has a bunch of, like, potential? And the only one that I could think of is Shane Wright, who hasn't been as effective on the Kraken as we thought that he might be. I'm just pulling up I don't remember what draft that was. Was that the 2022 draft, I believe, or the 2023 draft? But, like, there's no point giving Jiricek up for, like, a B prospect and a second round pick and a roster player. Like, that's it's just not worth it, in my opinion, you know? Here we go. So Shane Wright has played 34 games with the Kraken and has recorded 9 points, 6 goals, 3 assists over 3 seasons. Like, that's really genuinely the only player that I can think of that is going to kind of sit in that area. Like, I'm going to pull up the 2021 draft to just take a quick look at the top 10 there. But, like, you know, it's very much a case of the kind of trade you want to do is the Cutter Gauthier for Jamie Drysdale type trade, or the Rutger Grotti for Brayden Yager type trade. You know, you don't want to get stuck with a trade that is essentially a very, very good prospect that has a lot of potential for a bunch of spare parts that maybe add up to the same in value, but you're not going to get the same value, you know? Like, and again, I'm looking at the top 10 of the top 10 of the 2021 draft, but again, there's no one here that I'm like, oh yeah, we should, like, he's struggling, we should go after him. You know, like, even if I go back to the 2020 draft, and then we're getting into kind of weird territory, but, like, again, there's no one here. Like, all of these guys seem to be doing okay, doing pretty well, like, succeeding on the team that they're currently on. Like, I like the only other option that potentially would make sense to me, and again, I'm only saying this because I'm sick and tired of all of the, like, stupid predictions that are coming out. Like, do you package David Jiricek and something else and the first round pick for, like, Mitch Marner, providing he signs a contract with the team? Providing he signs long-term with Columbus, that is. Or do you go after someone like Kyle Connor in Winnipeg, who I know Winnipeg really wanted to lock him up, but he hasn't extended his contract yet. There was a lot of talk at the offseason that he didn't maybe want to stay with Winnipeg long term. You know, do I think either of things are likely to happen? No. Do I want either of these things to happen? Not really, no. But, like, I don't think you're going to win a trade with David Jiricek as the piece unless you're getting a similar piece back. And, you know, it can't be, we're going to trade David Jiricek for 3 different things that add up to one David Jiricek, because that's not how it works, you know? So, basically, I think Jiricek's fate is he's going to go down to the AHL, and he'll probably cry about it a little bit. He'll probably get mad about it. His agent will be furious about it. But, like, in the long scheme, like, and here's the thing as well, send him down and keep him there. Do not do what you did last season and call him up and send him down and call him up and send him down. And, like, Jari Kekalainen told him in November, oh, get an apartment in Columbus. You're here for the long haul. And then immediately started healthy scratching him and, like, sending him down and up and down and up and down. So, like, don't do that to the kid. Send him down, keep him down, put him with Matejchuk, let them go. He's 20 years old. He'll be fine. Calm down. Anyway. My kind of wrap-up thought here is, and this is not about Jiricek or Fabbro or anything specifically, is the Blue Jackets maybe are frustrating to watch at times this season. And, you know, I know that I specifically got really mad about that Montreal game because it was a really annoying, stupid, bad game to watch that, again, The Jackets played terribly. The Habs didn't play well. They just played better than the Blue Jackets, which was, a low bar to cross in that game. For the most part, the Blue Jackets are looking a lot better this season. Again, the underlying stats, I know people don't like talking about underlying stats, but they are there. They are looking good. And the team is looking much better defensively, which is, again, that was the biggest thing that they needed to improve on this season. Like, if they get a bump in goaltending, great. If the offense is about the same as it was last year, that makes sense. Based on what you've lost and what you've added, like, it makes sense that the offense is probably going to be about where it was last season. I do think the offense is slightly better than it was last season, but again, I don't know whether that'll progress or not. The defense, for me, is the most improved part of the Blue Jackets this season, which is really, really great to see, because that was by far the biggest headache last season, was how many times this team just collapsed defensively, and no one knew what they were doing, and everyone was playing with everyone else, and, like, they had different partners every 5 minutes. So, like, consistency, stability, and solidity, that's not a word, solidness, no, but you know what I mean. Like, the defense has been much improved, and I think that's a sustainable problem. Unless Dean Everson goes insane and starts, line blending the defense every 3 minutes or whatever, which I don't think he will, knock on wood. This feels like a sustainable improvement for the Blue Jackets, in a different way than, like, obviously, we talked a lot about how they went on the most unsustainable shooting heater at the start of the season, and that has since cooled off. This doesn't feel like a heater. This just feels like, oh, okay, this is what is happening now, which is really fun and good. And will probably continue to frustrate me as the season continues, as things progress throughout the season. We're less than a quarter of the way through the season right now. Things will decline, things will improve, but I think that this underlying defensive solidity, it's still not a word, but I'm going to keep using it, is sustainable and is a really, really good sign of things to come. That's kind of all I've got for today. Tomorrow, we're going to take a look at how the Tampa Bay Lightning are doing. Spoiler alert, it's pretty good because it's Tampa. We'll talk about how the Blue Jackets match up against them, what we're expecting, who needs to have a big game. Hopefully, we'll get to talk about Ken Johnson a little bit. Cross our fingers. But that's going to be it for me today. Thank you for listening, for making it your first listen of the day every single day. We are free and available on all podcast platforms, on YouTube and on SiriusXM. And I've been Jay Foster. You can find me on Twitter @_Jacob Foster, JKOBFORICER. You can find the show at LO_Blue Jackets. And if you have comments, questions, criticisms, email me at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com. Until tomorrow, make sure you stay locked on.